On September 17th, 2023, silence enveloped the quiet neighborhood of Romeoville, Illinois. Among the rows of peaceful-looking houses, no one could have imagined that a horrifying tragedy had occurred in one of the homes on the 500 block of Concord Avenue, a tragedy that would shake the entire community and leave a lingering question in the minds of everyone who knew the family. That day, concern grew among two family members who had been trying to contact Zoraida Bartolomei and her husband, Alberto Rolon, but received no response. Brianna Bartolomei, Zoraida's sister, sensed that something was wrong. Throughout the day, neither Zoraida nor Alberto answered their phones, which was unusual since they always kept in touch with family. Even more suspiciously, Alberto failed to show up for work, despite being known as a disciplined employee who never missed a shift without notice. These concerns were further heightened when Zoraida's mother reported the same worries to authorities. With a voice full of anxiety, she urged the police to check on their home. When the police arrived at the scene around 8:43 p.m., the house appeared silent and tightly shut. There were no signs of life inside, no sounds, no movement. The front door was locked, but when they tried to peek through the window, the scene inside gave them a terrible feeling. The TV was overturned, the coffee table was in disarray, and the overall state of the house seemed unnatural. This chaotic condition did not look like an ordinary occurrence. Instead, it was a sign that something terrible had happened inside. The officers decided to search the back of the house for another way in. As they moved through the backyard, they discovered a slightly open window. When they entered through the back patio, a chilling air engulfed them, not just because the night was growing late, but because something eerie and horrifying seemed to shroud the atmosphere of the house. As they stepped further inside, a gruesome sight began to unfold. The stench of blood immediately filled the air. Near the living room, two dogs were found lying lifeless, the first sign that whatever had happened in this house was far from ordinary. Furniture was scattered across the floor, yet there were no signs of struggle from the residents. Everything felt too silent, too still, until that silence was finally shattered by a horrifying discovery in the hallway. There, the lifeless body of 38-year-old Alberto Rolon lay motionless. He had been murdered without a chance to defend himself. Further inside the house, in a bedroom, Zoraida was found in a heartbreaking state. Her face was covered by both hands, as if she had tried to shield herself when death came for her. But the most tragic sight of all was in their children's bedroom. On their bed, Adriel, 10 years old, and Diego, 7 years old, were found lifeless. There were no signs that they had fought back or tried to escape. They had been killed in their own sleep, in an atmosphere of terrifying silence. Nearly 24 bullet casings were scattered across the floor of the house. There were no signs of robbery, nothing was missing, and there was no indication that this was a random act of violence. Investigators quickly realized that they were not dealing with an ordinary crime, but a cold and meticulously planned execution. The news devastated the local community. The couple was known as quiet and friendly neighbors. They had only moved into the neighborhood in April after purchasing their dream home, hoping to start a better life. There was no criminal history, no financial troubles, and no records suggesting they had enemies. But why were they the targets of such a brutal murder? While examining the crime scene, investigators discovered something suspicious on the living room wall. There was an attempt to write something with spray paint, but only a single letter had formed, F. There was no continuation of the word, as the spray paint appeared to have jammed, leaving behind an incomplete message that only deepened the mystery surrounding the case. What was the perpetrator trying to write? Was it an intentional message, or merely an interruption in the midst of their brutal act? Piecing together this mystery was no easy task. Investigators had to dig deeper into the victims' lives, searching for hidden conflicts, unknown enemies, or any other possible reasons that could explain why they had been targeted. Answers did not come immediately. It took a full year for investigators to connect the pieces and uncover the background of this tragedy. But when all the facts finally came to light, the revealed truth was far more terrifying than anyone could have ever imagined. This was not just an ordinary murder case. It was a story of a dark plan, an unexpected motive, and a truth more chilling than anyone had anticipated. That night, in the usual silence that enveloped the Rolon Bolam family home, Alberto was still awake. As a night shift worker, he had a habit of sleeping at different hours from his wife and children. However, that night would be different, a night that would turn into an unimaginable tragedy. Zoraida and their two children were most likely already fast asleep in their bedroom, seeking comfort under their warm blankets. Perhaps one of the children had trouble sleeping, a common occurrence for young kids, and had eventually settled in their mother's bed. No one could have predicted that the bed, meant to be a place of safety and comfort, would become a silent witness to a horrifying event. That was when a suspicious noise came from the back door. Maybe it was just a faint sound, perhaps the creak of wood that could be ignored on any other night. But there was something about the sound that made Alberto get up. He walked toward the hallway, trying to make sure his family was safe. However, before he could comprehend what was happening, the sound of gunfire filled the house. The first shot hit Alberto, wounding him, but he still had the strength to run toward the bedroom, desperately trying to reach his wife and children. Unfortunately, before he could get there, 5 more bullets struck his body. He never had a chance. This scene immediately made it clear that the family was not the victim of a random attack. This was a planned execution. Any initial suspicion that the incident might have been a murder-suicide was quickly ruled out. No weapon was found in the house. The killer was still out there. Police estimated that the incident occurred between 9 p.m. on Saturday and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Although the killer had not yet been identified, authorities did not issue a shelter-in-place order or declare an emergency. However, they warned residents to remain vigilant and report anything suspicious they might see. The investigation progressed quickly, and before long, a crucial lead emerged from Zoraida's workplace. Her co-workers at the manufacturing facility revealed that Zoraida had shared concerns about threatening messages she had received in the weeks leading up to her death. Since June, the messages had been relentless, warning her to stay away from a man named Nathaniel Huai Jr., a co-worker at her job. Zoraida and Nathaniel had been involved in a relationship for the past 4 months. The affair was not a secret to Alberto. He knew about it, and though it was painful, they had decided to stay together for the sake of their children. However, as the relationship continued, the threats against Zoraida escalated. The messages even began to hint at murder. Someone did not want Zoraida to be with Nathaniel, and the threats were not just empty words. In fact, just a week before the tragedy, Alberto himself received a terrifying anonymous message from an unknown number. The message was clear and chilling. "This is the last time I'll say this, Alberto. That stupid woman will be the reason you no longer have children, !" With this information, police quickly sought out Nathaniel Huai. They found him at his workplace and began interrogating him. Nathaniel appeared nervous as he tried to explain his relationship with Zoraida. He admitted that they had a special bond and even referred to Zoraida as his angel. However, he insisted that he had no involvement in the murders. Further investigation revealed intriguing details about Nathaniel's personal life. He lived with a woman named Hermelinda Palomo and had been in a relationship with her for 8 years. They had held a church wedding ceremony but had never legally registered their marriage. At times, he referred to Hermelinda as his fiancée. However, despite still being with Hermelinda, Nathaniel seemed to share a deeper connection with Zoraida, one that she even likened to the tragic love story of Romeo and Juliet. The evidence against Nathaniel continued to mount when police discovered a handwritten note from Zoraida at his workplace. In the note, Zoraida wrote, "You mean so much to me. I'm not sure you understand how much I truly love you." ***. However, one even more suspicious fact was that Nathaniel owned a security business called Black Bear Security, LLC. Through this business, he offered personal security services as well as firearm repairs. Photos on his social media showed him posing with various weapons. The shocking detail, however, was that Nathaniel was legally prohibited from owning firearms due to a battery charge from 2016. Despite this, he continued running his business and openly displayed firearms online. As the investigation deepened, more evidence pointed toward Nathaniel. Police discovered that 2 days before the murders, Nathaniel had left work early and did not return until the day after the killings. His co-workers reported that before leaving, he appeared agitated and tense, particularly during his interactions with Zoraida. Further revelations came from his fiance's family. One of Hermelinda's daughters described Nathaniel as increasingly paranoid in the weeks leading up to the murders. He frequently spoke about people coming after him, covered his doorbell camera with black electrical tape, and even blocked the red standby light on the television, convinced that he was being watched. As the police continued to monitor Nathaniel, they followed him to a Walmart parking lot. There, they observed him handing over a large black duffel bag to a former security colleague. When the bag was eventually recovered and examined, its contents further strengthened suspicions against him. Inside, investigators found 11 rounds of .45 ACP ammunition, 3 Glock magazines, 2 rifles, 2 bulletproof vest plates, a knife, black zip ties, and various other equipment. However, the 9mm weapon used in the murders was still missing. On the same night that police visited Nathaniel at work, they also went to Hermelinda's home. When they spoke with her, her demeanor suggested that she knew more than she was letting on. But how involved was she? Did she know about the murder plot? Or was she just another victim caught in Nathaniel's web of deception? The investigation was far from over, but one thing was becoming increasingly clear. This case was far more complex than it appeared on the surface. The truth was slowly unraveling, and police were racing against time to ensure that justice would be served. At this stage of the investigation, the police are digging deeper into information leading to the main suspect. One of the steps they took was conducting a phone dump, a technique that allows them to retrieve messages sent through downloadable messaging apps like TextNow. With this method, they can access conversations that have been deleted or are not visible to the phone's owner. From the analysis of these messages, the police discovered evidence that someone was extremely angry at the victim before the murder occurred. This finding provides a clue that further strengthens the suspicion that the murder was not a random act, but had a deeper motive. When police confronted Hermelinda Palomo, the fiancée of Nate Huey, they encountered a 50-year-old woman who appeared confused. Hermelinda, a mother of 5, had never expected to find herself involved in this investigation. She agreed to sit with officers inside their patrol car and answer a series of questions. During the interrogation, she revealed that she had just spoken to Nate on the phone before the police approached her. In that conversation, Nate seemed panicked and claimed that someone was following him. When police began discussing Nate's affair with Zoraida Bartolomei, Hermelinda appeared shocked. She stated that it was the first time she had heard about the relationship. However, she admitted that she had seen Zoraida's name appear on Nate's phone late at night. When asked whether she knew Alberto Rolon, Zoraida's husband, Hermelinda said she did not recognize the name. However, something bothered her: the fact that Nate insisted he didn't know Zoraida when confronted by the police. Hermelinda began to doubt the truthfulness of Nate's statements. Police pressed further, asking if Hermelinda had ever suspected Nate of infidelity before. She admitted that in the early years of their relationship, she suspected he had been unfaithful, but she chose to believe that Nate had changed. She also emphasized that she had never threatened or tried to chase other women away from Nate's life, because she believed that the responsibility lay with Nate, not with other women. When police began investigating Nate's whereabouts on the night of the murder, Hermelinda insisted that Nate was home all night on both Friday and Saturday. She emphasized that although they slept in separate parts of the house, it was impossible for Nate to leave without her knowledge. She even stated that her children could vouch for his alibi. However, this statement did not completely reassure the police, especially given the fact that Nate had left work early 2 days before the murder and did not return until after the crime had occurred. When asked whether she believed Nate was capable of killing someone, Hermelinda hesitated for a moment before answering. She stated that although Nate often exhibited defensive and paranoid behavior, he had always tried to diffuse conflicts rather than start fights. She found it hard to believe that the man she had known for years could commit such a brutal act. However, investigators were not satisfied with verbal testimony alone. They began tracing the origin of the threatening messages sent to Zoraida and Alberto. The evidence increasingly pointed to a connection between these messages and a phone number linked to someone within Nate's close circle. Additionally, the police requested permission to examine the contents of Nate's phone and collect a DNA sample. They attempted to reassure Nate that this was simply a standard procedure to rule him out as a suspect. However, Nate appeared hesitant, stating that there were things on his phone he didn't want the police to see. When asked to hand over his phone on the spot, he chose to delay, saying that he would come to the police station after work instead. Furthermore, the police wanted to search Nate's vehicle for any possible traces of blood. Nate firmly refused, insisting that there was no blood in his car and that he was not involved in the murder. However, his defensive behavior only heightened investigators' suspicions. As more facts came to light, the police became increasingly convinced that Nate Hyai was closely linked to the murder. However, they still needed stronger evidence to legally charge him. The investigation continued, uncovering one detail after another, bringing them ever closer to the truth. This situation is truly complex and confusing. Nate understands that the authorities are just doing their job, but he is worried that his involvement could be misinterpreted. He wants to ensure that he is not trapped in something he does not fully understand. The detective handling his case tries to reassure him, explaining that they are merely following orders from their superiors and want to complete the investigation as soon as possible. Nate eventually agrees to bring his car in for inspection, believing that there is no incriminating evidence there. He states that he just wants to resolve everything and trusts that the police share the same goal. However, despite his claims of trust in the officers, his uneasiness remains evident. After agreeing to the detective's request to provide a DNA sample and allowing them to examine his phone and car, Nate left his workplace. However, upon realizing that the police were following him, he chose to stop and speak with an officer. The police attempted to contact him to confirm that he would still come in after eating, but they received no definite response. As the investigation deepened, Nate began discussing the messages on his phone. When asked about the threatening messages sent to Zoraida and Alberto, he claimed to know nothing about them. However, he stated that he himself had received strange messages from people who he believed were targeting him. He referred to them as a Bulgarian group that frequently tampered with his phone using advanced technology. The police then examined the data on Nate's phone and found threatening messages that supported his claims. It turned out that Nate had been receiving threats for a much longer time than Zoraida and Alberto. Strangely, however, there had been no communication between them regarding these threats. Nate believed that the messages came from a dangerous drug cartel composed of individuals of Mexican and Bulgarian descent. He felt that he was constantly being watched and forced to follow their instructions. Additionally, he was told that there was a traitor in his life who intended to attack him, and the identity of that person would be revealed in due time. Nate's conversations with the people sending him messages showed that he accepted all the information without questioning its authenticity. He truly believed that he had become part of a criminal network that endangered his life. On September 19, Nate and his fiancée, Hermelinda, hired a lawyer. Later, Nate met his mother at a store while Hermelinda waited in the car. There, Nate confessed that he was the one responsible for the murder of Zoraida's family. When his mother asked him why he did it, he responded that he felt he was being hunted and believed that the victim's children were better off dead than living without their parents. It was unclear how his mother responded to the confession. However, on the same day, a police officer stopped Hermelinda outside their home as she was about to get into her car. A license plate recognition camera had captured the vehicle in Romeoville at the time of the murders. Police then began the process of obtaining a search warrant. With the help of surveillance footage and other sources, investigators tracked the vehicle used in the crime from Nate and Hermelinda's home in Streamwood to Zoraida's residence in Romeoville. The footage showed Nate exiting the car from the passenger side, while Hermelinda was the one driving the vehicle. When asked if she had gone anywhere on the night of the incident, Hermelinda initially claimed that she had been home all night. She also stated that Nate had not left the house, even saying that her children could support this claim. However, on the same day, Nate and Hermelinda fled out of state. Before leaving, Hermelinda contacted her family and expressed fear of Nate, but said she had to go with him. After they failed to hear from her again, her family reported her as a missing and endangered person. The following day, a nationwide search alert was issued for them. Hermelinda later sent farewell messages to her family, hinting that she might be in danger. However, upon further investigation, police discovered evidence that Hermelinda was not a victim, but the mastermind behind the entire scheme. The investigation revealed that since December 2021, Hermelinda had created multiple fake identities and phone numbers to convince Nate that he was dealing with a criminal cartel. She used different personas to reinforce her story, pretending to be bosses, hitmen, and hackers. She even learned to translate words into Bulgarian to make her deception more convincing. A week before the murder, Hermelinda sent threatening messages to Zoraida and Alberto. However, when her threats failed to make Zoraida leave Nate, she sent a message to Nate using one of her fake identities, convincing him that Zoraida was a traitor, planning to attack him first. She made him believe he needed to act quickly before he was targeted. On September 14th, Nate began planning the murder with the help of one of the cartel members, who was actually Hermelinda herself. He researched the victim's neighborhood, identified security camera blind spots, and carefully planned how to avoid leaving any traces behind. Police ultimately concluded that Nate died without ever knowing that the entire cartel story was a lie. The woman he had loved and trusted all along was the mastermind behind the brutal murders that destroyed his life. And that is the full story behind this shocking tragedy, a plan so intricate, manipulation so deep, and a truth that was ultimately revealed in the most unexpected way. This case reminds us that not everything is as it seems, and sometimes the people we trust the most can be the most dangerous. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more fascinating stories. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Nate truly had no idea, or was he just pretending? See you in the next video.